Nepal and Bhutan are located between two major countries, India and China. It's rise obvious question, why didn't China or India annex this country? In this video we explain about it. The question comprises two invading countries and two victim countries, thus representing four combinations which need to be addressed individually. India and Nepal. Nepal is culturally Indic, but politically distinct. But there were political exchanges between India and Nepal in the last millennium. Karnata dynasty from Mithila straddled both countries' list of kings of Mithila. The Malla kings of Kathmandu, who ruled before the Gurkhas, claimed descent from them. But the later Muslim kings of India were either indifferent to or incapable of invading and occupying the Nepali kingdom. Two attacks by two Bengali sultans, about 4 centuries apart, were mostly repulsed and did not lead to any occupation. I have pondered about this subject here. Rajiv Satyanarayana, Rajiva S. answer to how did Nepal manage to retain its Hindu identity during the centuries Mughals ravaged much of South Asian kingdoms. Far from India invading Nepal. It was Nepal that later invaded and conquered Sirma, Garhwal and Kumaon regions of the Indian Himalayas in the late 18th century. The Anglo-Gurkha War restored these back to British India, who realized the importance of Nepal as a buffer. China and Nepal. Strictly speaking, China doesn't border Nepal but Tibet does. Before I get the lecture of Tibet being part of China, we need to treat them as separate entities for this question because both are players. For some reason, an expansionist Tibet of 17th century, which attacks Ladakh and Bhutan, doesn't attack Nepal. I cannot be sure why, since Nepal was not yet united and relatively weak. Maybe the Tibetans did not want to disrupt the crucial India trade flowing through Nepal. Or maybe the Malla kings of Nepal had maintained really good relationships with Tibetans for whom they minted coins. In the late 18th century, when Nepal itself is united and expansionist, it wages a war with Tibet, and the King Chanlong Emperor of Beijing helps its protectorate. Why doesn't King annex Nepal? Because its supply lines were severely strained and it wanted the campaign to end. Nepal is forced to give some tribute to the king as per the agreement of 1792. But when the British and Nepal fight in Gurkha War, New World Encyclopedia, King doesn't interfere. That means King doesn't think of Nepal as its protectorate in the way it did Tibet. China and Bhutan. I have written here why Bhutan is not part of Tibet. Rajiv Satyanarayana's answer to how did Bhutan become independent from Tibet rule. It is Tibetan in culture but cis-Himalayan in geography. The 17th century Dalai Lama's plans to annex it failed. There still lingered some big brother relationship with Tibet. But this country, unlike Nepal, doesn't seem to have entered the king consciousness at all. India and Bhutan. The country is on the easternmost side of India on the Himalayas. Dynasties from Bhutan had set up dynasties in Assam and northern Bengal. Ken dynasty. The foothills of the Himalayas near Bhutan were occupied by the Mughals or Ahom kingdoms of India. But not the country itself. As mentioned above, Himalayas themselves appear to be off-limits for the Mughal emperors, for the most part. However, Bhutan flexed its muscles in the 18th century and occupied the Mughal protectorate of Cooch Behar. Later, the British India annexed the fertile Duars region. India from Bhutan to make way for tea plantations. So in summary, the main reasons these two countries were not annexed are 1. They were useful as buffer states. 2. They are remote and inaccessible. 3. They were inhabited by a proud people who cherished their independence.